Welcome to another episode of Saving One Life Yours, a podcast brought to you by tag4life. We shine a powerful light on medically vulnerable people who, for whatever reason, can't speak for themselves. Today's guest is Victoria Yocum, tag4life's marketing and social media director and a liver transplant survivor. Our host and moderator is Ken Feld, tag4life's chief operating officer. Today's topic is the story of Victoria's courageous battle from a young age with Wilson's disease, her journey through sickness and pain to a new lease on life after transplant, finding her dream job as a birth tissue recovery coordinator with New Mexico Donor Services and Donate Life, and why, even as a relatively young person, she feels a need to be a part of tag4life's mission to provide medical IDs for medically vulnerable people.
Hey, Victoria, how are you?
Hi, Ken. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's one of those great days here in Phoenix. We're right in the middle of our perfect time of year. It's mid 70s and a little chilly at night, but for us, that means we have to wear socks at night. So, this is our time of year to really celebrate living here and getting ready for the 115-degree weather that's right around the corner for us. And
I'm
how are things with you?
I'm doing great. I'm very jealous. I'm in New Mexico, it's warming up, but it's not, you still need to wear a sweater or a jacket at night. But I've been going on walks because it's been so sunny and it makes me miss Arizona. Like I wish I was there, but I'm doing good. Everything has been great with me and my health. I tend to base like my state of being off of my health, and my health has been great. So I'm very happy.
Well, what our listeners don't know is today was going to be a real special day. It was going to be our first chance of co-hosting together on a podcast, and I was really looking forward to doing that with you. As you know, unfortunately, our guest that was scheduled for today had to reschedule because of a family emergency. So we flipped the script, and now you get to be on the other side of the desk and participate as our guest for today. And I appreciate you being flexible and willing to participate and share your story with us in this fashion. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. It is unfortunate that we weren't able to interview the original guest, but I'm honored to be able to share my story, and I'm glad that you asked me if we could do this. So I'm very excited. Thank you, Ken.
And then we'll be working together on the next week to co-host together.
Yes, we are
So
the team.
So, I know a little bit about your story, Victoria, but it's fascinating to me. And could you take a moment and just share with us how you got to where you are and your story?
Yeah, of course. So my story is a little long, and if I'm dragging on or rambling, please just stop me or cut me off. But I was diagnosed with the rare liver disease, Wilson's disease, when I was 5 years old. It's a disease that makes it so that the liver doesn't process copper, and so copper builds up in the body and causes a lot of issues, neurological and like muscular and dietary, so many issues. So I was diagnosed really young because my aunt received a transplant, and randomly she just woke up one day and was very sick and had end-stage liver failure, and she got her transplant. And once they biopsied her liver post-transplant, they found out it was this disease, and we had never heard of it. In my home state of New Mexico, there weren't any liver doctors at the time, and so there wasn't any place really for me to go get care, especially as a child. So I would have to see gastrointestinal GI doctors, and they did not know how to manage the disease. The medication that I was prescribed was very strong, and I was really young and really small, and they were honest in telling me and my family that they weren't sure how to dose the medication because they were used to only dosing adults. It was rare that a child get diagnosed so young. And so I was unfortunately overprescribed the medication for a very long time. The medication is zinc, which is a common over-the-counter, medication or supplement. But because I was overprescribed it for so long, for years, and I knew I was being overprescribed it, I felt so sick every time I took it. And it reached a point when I was getting older and I was in high school, I would be in and out of the hospital every few months. I would be hospitalized every few months. And I knew I would tell the doctors it's because of the medication. And they, no, you're going to have to take more, if anything, because you need to manage this disease and the copper needs to be expelled from your body. And finally, it reached a point where I ended up in the emergency room when I was 16. And it was found that I was severely poisoned, had toxic metal poisoning from zinc. And it really affected everything. Since that time, my quality of life was just really diminished because it stripped the lining of my stomach. And so I had a really hard time eating really anything. And prior to that even happening, I was already restricted in my diet because I had to follow a low copper diet, which copper is in everything we eat. So it became very difficult. It kind of became like I always had to focus on my health and kind of plan my life around the way I felt every day. And every day I felt really sick. The metal poisoning caused a lot of deficiencies in my body and just a lot of complications. And to the point where I couldn't even take the medication at all anymore. And
I'd
there
like
was,
to,
yeah.
if I might, all of us at tag4life are either survivors of cancer or have had liver transplants. And personally, mine was later on in life, in my mid-50s, when I got sick and had a transplant. The courage that you displayed at such a young age, being in high school and going through that in some of the prime years of young adulthood, how did you deal with that? Where did you find the courage, or what was that like for you to have to go through that process as a young adult?
I'm sorry if I get emotional talking about it, but it was very difficult. I didn't know any other way. I didn't know what it was like to feel healthy. I didn't know that it wasn't normal to not be in pain, to be in pain all the time. Um, I didn't realize that until I was older, until I was in high school, and I was like, I don't think it's normal to wake up and feel pain every day. I don't think it's normal to not be able to eat, to always be throwing up, to have all of these restrictions. And being in and out of the hospital was just a part of my life. I thought it was normal. I really didn't know any different. From a very young age, I was always just living like that. And so when it reached a point where I had to advocate for myself and I had to try and tell these doctors something is wrong, I know what it is, trying to convince them that I needed help, I don't think I did a very good job at it. And I tend to get emotional, even as a patient, because it was just so frustrating to not be heard, not be listened to. I think a lot of the strength that I did have came from my family, from the support that they gave me, especially my sister. She would always have my back, no matter no matter where she was. She would come to the hospital and she would like try and talk to the doctors for me and try and convince them as well. And I don't know if it was because I was young or because I'm a girl, but I just was never taken seriously. And I felt like me becoming emotional made them distrust me more for some reason. It
I
was,
use I use the term a lot, to be surrounded by a village.
yeah.
And I know even when I went through what I went through and had to make significant changes in my lifestyle and my work and the people I was around and just, my activities, finding a new circle or a new village to be a part of was incredibly important. And you were smart enough, and I use the words courageous again, to realize that you needed that. And you should be commended. And it's quite a remarkable story. And when did it change? When did it switch over to getting more positive and more productive for you?
Not until I had my transplant. Like it literally took, so to kind of continue with my story, after I was overprescribed the medication and had that poisoning, like I said, my body was never the same. I couldn't take the medication to treat my disease anymore. And at that time, my parents decided to move to the East Coast, where the leading experts of Wilson's disease are, at Yale New Haven Hospital in Connecticut. And so I saw the leading researchers. I participated in research studies for Wilson's disease. The main person who kind of manages all of the patients, the main patients for Wilson's disease, I saw him, and he told me, you will never need a transplant. You're always going to be like healthy, and I would tell him, I feel sick, I feel terrible. And he wouldn't believe me. He didn't believe that I was overprescribed the medication. I don't mean to talk bad about him. That's not what my intention. I think he is a very knowledgeable doctor, and he's in his position for a reason. I just don't feel like, in my case, I did not feel listened to. And so, since that time, over the years, I just kept getting more and more sick, more and more restricted. I eventually couldn't work anymore. I luckily finished my degree after taking many semesters off and having to take time off because of my health. And it was very difficult. I finally reached a point where I couldn't work anymore, and I couldn't do anything, and I couldn't eat, and I lost weight rapidly. I was almost 100 pounds, and I couldn't walk anymore. I was in a wheelchair. I was using crutches. I just couldn't seem to, my life was just diminishing, my quality of life. And I felt like I was dying. I felt like something was wrong. And I knew that if I didn't do something, that I wasn't going to be here anymore. And so, for the last, I would say 2 years before my transplant, maybe 3, I really extremely changed my life. Like, I changed my diet completely. I changed to a vegan plant-based diet, and I did a lot of research in herbal medicine and meditation and yoga. And I know that those sort of things aren't really trusted by the healthcare community, but they were the most effective things that I did my whole life before my transplant. And I think that was a positive, sort of like when it started to positively change. I still felt awful, and I was in end-stage liver failure. I didn't know it yet. But I would say that taking ownership of my situation, instead of just feeling sad about it every day, instead of crying about it every day, which I still did, but I kind of felt like I had this power over it. Like, well, I'm doing everything I can, and I know that I'm doing everything I can to make sure that I can, try my best. And so I reached a point where I just couldn't really do it anymore. And like I said, I couldn't walk anymore. And so I heard about the Mayo Clinic in Arizona. And so I drove from New Mexico to Arizona. And I will mention that the day before I drove to the Mayo Clinic, I went to the hospitals here in New Mexico. And they told me, and I was jaundiced, I had ascites, and they told me, there's nothing we can do for you. You need to go home. We don't know why you're here. Like, there was no, I'm not even kidding. I'm not exaggerating. That is what they told me verbatim. And so the next day I drove to the Mayo Clinic, and they said, you're in end stage liver failure. You have about a week before your liver's completely gone. And it was very shocking. Like I said, I was told I would never need a transplant. I'm sorry. I was told I would never need a transplant. And so for me, it was kind of like shocking. And I didn't handle the news well. I was happy that they found what was wrong, but it was very scary. And I was relieved that I finally was being listened to and heard, but it felt like hopeless. It felt like they were telling me, we're going to list you and you're going to get a liver, but I didn't believe them. It felt like, well, I've done this game so many times. I've seen so many doctors, and they've never been able to help me. So it just felt like another one of those, like I wasn't going to get the help that I needed. And I was proven wrong so hard, because the Mayo Clinic nurses and the doctors and everybody there, even the people that welcome you at the front desk, it's unmatched care. And they treated me like a person. And the nurses that I had treated me like I was their friend, and they got to know me and my family. And it was just such a different level of care that I've never experienced. So every day the doctors, my doctors at Mayo, were telling me, you're going to make it, you're going to be okay, you're going to live a long life, you're going to be able to do what you want to do. And it was very hard for me to believe them, but they gave me that hope that I needed. And I was in the hospital for about a month. They were doing a lot of things to try and slow down the failure of my liver. Before they listed me, they wanted to see if maybe they could do something to prevent the transplant, but they found out ultimately, since I couldn't take my medication, and my liver was so far gone, that it was just best if I got a transplant. So they listed me on June 10th, and on June 17th, I finally got the news that they had a match. And when they told me that they had found it, I remember it was literally the best day of my entire life. I'll never forget. I've never been that happy before. I was laughing and crying like a psycho, and the nurses in my family were coming in, and they were like, "We can hear you down the hall. You're the only person on this floor that's laughing." And throughout this whole thing, you know, I was very sad, but I'm a very positive person, and I'm very like bubbly and charismatic. And they just said, like, you know, your personality is like, you were meant to go through this. You were meant to have this happen to you. And it really felt like that. It really felt like everything had happened in my life to lead me up to this point. And to get that news that my liver was there, it felt like this is what I've been waiting for my whole life. This is what I needed. I needed a miracle, a gift to help take away my pain and make my life better. And when I woke up from the surgery, I felt better than I ever had in my entire life. I literally felt like I never knew what it was like to be healthy. And I'd finally reached that point where, yeah, I guess I realized that was it. But that's like the short gist of my story. But when you asked, like, when did it start getting positive, it really didn't happen until I woke up from my transplant. And every single day since then, my life is amazing. And even my bad days are a million times better than my good days before. Every day I wake up and I don't feel pain, and I feel healthy, and I can go to the gym, and I can work out things I could never do before. I can eat food that I've never been able to eat before, just common food. So it's really been the biggest gift. Yeah. I'm sorry for getting emotional.
Now that we've made that turn that corner, and I can now wipe my eyes a little bit and clear them up. What a powerful story. Thank you. You joined tag4life, and that's going to be a small part of our next discussion, because I really want to get to your exciting news about what you're doing with Donate Life and where your life is going now. But tell us about your involvement with tag4life and why you chose to get involved, and some of the details of that, please.
Yeah. So, as you know, we have a weekly support group with the Mayo Clinic for liver transplant recipients. And so I was going weekly. It's a great thing. It really helped me throughout my recovery. And I became very close with the regular people that would go, like our president of tag4life, Ben, excuse me. And he had started talking about starting this, and I don't even know if it had a name yet, but he started talking about the need for medical IDs and asking in group, you know, how many people have medical IDs, and the majority of them didn't, including me. And he started kind of emphasizing, you know, this is something important that we should really have. And I think he started to kind of get people to realize, like, maybe this is something important. And so he started tag4life, and he kind of got it a little established. And during that time, I had a lot of free time, and I was posting a lot of social media content about my transplant and about organ donation. And the joke in the group was that I was the liver influencer, the transplant influencer, as they called me, which is very far from the truth. I don't have nearly enough followers to be an influencer, but
The liver whisperer.
exactly. And so I just really enjoy posting about it. I think it's an important thing to post about. I think it's important for people, especially my age, to kind of be aware of, because a lot of people aren't really educated on it, or misinformed, or just don't know. So I think through that, Ben sort of asked me, like, hey, if you enjoy doing social media, do you think you could maybe do social media for tag4life?
And I think that's a real positive thing for the organization, because I know myself, when I first heard about medical IDs, I never thought I would need one, but the reflex reaction is I've fallen and I can't get up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the older generation, and which now I'm a part of, but the people that need assisted living, and those, real critically ill. You don't think of young, energetic, vibrant people like you, but yet you're the audience as well, and the need for the IDs really span every generation, and every genre, and it's one of those things that I think it's really has a broad scope of people that it can impact positively. And it's certainly a real treasure to have you being part of that. I mean, because I wouldn't even know how to, I have a Facebook account. I don't think I know the login to actually get into it. So it's not in my wheelhouse. So we're very grateful that you're taking that over and doing such a fabulous job with it.
Thank you.
Tell us about what you're doing now, because I think that's one of the most exciting things. I know from my just interactions with you how much joy it's bringing you and satisfaction, and just the share with us what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So aside from doing the amazing work that we do at Tag4life, trying to educate the public about medical IDs and providing medical IDs for those who need it, I am also an employee of New Mexico Donor Services, Donate Life New Mexico, and I am a birth tissue recovery coordinator, which basically means that I recover placentas to be used for transplantation research, things like that. And I'll explain a little about, I guess, what my job is. So the membranes of the placenta is what's valuable. They're made into grafts, and the grafts are used for non-healing wounds like burns. They're used for surgeries. They're used for like cancer research, because the membranes have a lot of stem cells and proteins and things that are really beneficial. And this is a new thing that just started a few years ago, that they're discovering that we can use this placenta for so many valuable things. Before this, placentas were just thrown away in the trash as medical waste, every placenta. So it's really cool to be on, I like to say, the happier side of organ donation. I get to see babies be born every single day that I go into work, and it's so exciting. It's so happy. And then not only is life being brought into the world, but lives are being saved and improved through the donation of the placentas. So it's been, I mean, I just started about a month ago, but I honestly feel like it's my dream job. Like I feel like I sort of was made for me. Just my background and like the previous work that I've done in my biochemistry degree, I just think it's so cool. Like not only do I have my transplant and my own personal experience as a patient, as an organ recipient, but also as my background as a scientist. It's just like the perfect mix of the two. But not only that, but I get to see the other side of organ donation. I get to see the recoveries of kidneys and livers and hearts, and I get to see all that goes into it. And it's honestly given me such a deeper appreciation for my transplant, because everything has to work perfectly in order for a person to get an organ. And if there's so many wheels, like what is it, gears, cogs in the wheel, and they all have to come together in order for it to be successful. So I feel very fortunate to be an employee there, and I love it. I want to stay with donor services, and I want to continue to grow in that organization.
Well, I've been fortunate enough to spend some time with you. This is the first time actually hearing your full story, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing, and
Thank you.
I'm excited to see what you have in store for the world, not what the world has in store for you, because I think you're going to be a difference maker, and you're going to have a tremendous future and impact a lot of lives. I want to thank you for opening up and sharing with us your background. And is there anything you'd like to finish off with?
Thank you. Thank you so much for all those kind words. I guess I would like to draw it all together. I think ultimately through this whole experience, through everything that's happened to me in my life, first, I don't think, like I said, there's no accidents. I think that it almost feels like I had to go through everything I went through in order to get to this point where now I can use my story to maybe make a small impact. And even me posting on social media, my personal account and tag4life, I've had people message me saying how impactful it is, and saying that my story gives them hope, or asking me questions saying I never knew how important it was to be an organ donor, and I signed up because of you. So I think that what we're doing as liver recipients, and also with tag4life, is making an impact in the world. And even if it's a small impact right now, it's something. It's an impact that wouldn't have been there. And I think as far as medical IDs go, I really have learned how valuable it is to protect your health and to protect yourself. Health is the most valuable thing that we have. It can't be replaced. And when something goes wrong with it, there's really nothing, it's out of our control. And so I think in order to ensure that, it's important to be protected with a medical ID, no matter what type it is, because you never know when things are going to strike. So I'm very grateful to be a part of Tag4life. I think the mission is so valuable, and I really think that we are going to continue to grow and make big impacts in the world. So thank you.
Well, I am really looking forward to working along with you, and I'm excited about next week having you back on this side of the desk.
Me too. Thank you so much, Ken.
Victoria, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Saving One Life Yours, a podcast by Tag4life. Please subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube Podcasts. And if you'd like to drop us a line, whether to suggest future topics or for any other reason, please do so at contact@tag4life.org. At Tag4life, we shine a powerful light on medically vulnerable people who, for whatever reason, can't speak for themselves. We do this by helping to cover the cost of their medical IDs, no questions asked. So how can you help? Go to tag4life.org, or if you're watching our video podcast, open the camera app on your smartphone and click on the QR code to get to our homepage. Then click on the Donate button to contribute to our cause. Thanks so much for your support.